There is a difference between the general public term of pedophilia and the professional definition. The public usually associates pedophilia with someone who is sexually attracted to a human being below the legal age of the majority. However, the clinical term specifies the definition as sexual preference for children, usually of prepubertal or early pubertal age, and that for 6 months or more that person has acted on these urges or suffers from distress as a result of having these feelings. The individual must also be at least 16 years of age and at least 5 years older than the juvenile involved to meet criteria for pedophilia.
Pedophiles can be divided into two main categories: exclusive pedophiles and non-exclusive pedophiles. Exclusive pedophiles are only attracted to children, and non-exclusive pedophiles are attracted to children and adults. Exclusive pedophiles are sometimes referred to as true pedophiles. They are only attracted to children. Pedophiles are usually attracted to a particular age range. If the child is younger than 4 years, it is called infantophilia, usually 0 to 3 years on average. If the child is prepubertal or early pubertal, it is called pedophilia, 13 and younger on average. If the child is adolescent, it is called hebephilia, roughly 12 to 16 years. Even though there are differences between the sexual attraction to minors, only one term is mainly used by the media: the word pedophilia.
I'm trying to figure out what in the brain could possibly have caused pedophilia. Of course, for a very long time, many psychiatrists and many psychologists have believed that pedophilia is some kind of psychological reaction to either a trauma that the person experienced in childhood or some trying to work out some dynamic, something that went wrong in their parenting. But the more research we do, the more that we find that this really seems to be a biological disorder. There's something in the brain of a pedophile that's different from what's in the brain of a non-pedophile. So actually, I would disagree with the therapist in the clip. Pedophilia is an illness. Child molestation, however, is a choice.
So when the person in the film, the therapist in the film, she says, "Charlie, pedophilia isn't a sickness, and you have a choice about doing or not doing."
She's both right and wrong. All the evidence that we've been able to gather so far does say that pedophilia itself is an illness. It's child molestation that's the choice. Nobody chooses to be attracted to whatever it is that they're attracted to. Nobody chose to be attracted to adults. Nobody chose to be attracted to children. What they do choose is exactly how they manifest those attractions.
So, but the first part's all about wiring. You either are wired that way or you're not?
That's what all the research seems to show.
There is a difference between a pedophile who is attracted to 13-year-olds and a pedophile who is attracted to babies. Pedophiles who are attracted to babies are called infantophiles. Infantophilia is a subcategory of pedophilia. Infantophiles are usually attracted to infants aged 0 to 3. Infantophilia is the most extreme form of pedophilia. Very little is known about them because they are a minority amongst pedophiles.
Teachers, your first thought might be, good, I hope he learned something. But the parents of one 14-year-old in Florida were not happy about what their son was learning from a teacher in his school. Her name was Deborah LaFave, and she's one in a string of young female teachers who've admitted having sex with underage male students.
I don't believe that female pedophiles exist because women have a less aggressive sex drive.
Does society treat this differently? I mean, if this was a man doing this to a boy or a man doing this to a girl, would it be thought of in the same way? I mean, would the word relationship even be used?
That's right. I mean, sometimes I get confused. You know, is it a crime story? Is it a love story? Or was it consensual? Was it a rape? You know, all of that seems to be, you know, fodder for discussion. We really don't know.
I think female pedophiles exist because you have the classic stories of high school teachers that are having an affair with boy students.
39-year-old Ann Knopf denied allegations that she had sex with her daughter's ex in the basement of her home while her husband and children slept upstairs.
You would have maybe fantasies of you doing it with some hot soccer mom who was way older than you, because you know she's fully developed, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'd hit that.
Females are generally not associated with pedophilia in the eyes of modern society. Women are seen as nurturing and caring and would never harm children. If a man hugs a strange child, people would generally think he is a pervert. But if a woman hugs a strange child, people would think she is kind and even nurtures children that are not her own. There is a clear double standard when it comes to pedophilia between men and women. This double standard has allowed many offending female pedophiles to go undetected. Roughly 80% of the victims of female pedophiles are not believed. Furthermore, boys are less likely to report sexual abuse. The media mainly talks about female high school teachers when it comes to female pedophilia. However, high school teachers who have sexual activities with teenagers are not pedophiles. If the child is in puberty, it is called habophilia. This means that most high school teachers who have sex with children are offending habophiles. People who are attracted to adults are called teleophiles. However, sexuality is not bound by boxes. In reality, many categories overlap. Most humans are technically speaking a mix of habophiles and teleophiles. Teleophiles and habophiles overlap. There are 18-year-olds who look 16, and there are 16-year-olds who look 18. Habophiles and pedophiles also overlap. There are 15-year-olds who look like 13-year-olds, and vice versa. Even teleophiles and pedophiles overlap. There are 15-year-olds who look like adults, and there are young adults who look like children.
James, if people are born this way, we talked earlier about the wiring that's in their brains, is any discussion of rehabilitation, does that make any sense at all?
I hesitate to give really either of an answer. We just don't know. We're at the very beginning of this kind of research. The type of things that are different in the brain do not suggest any obvious neurological kind of treatment. There's no way that we know of to increase the tissue that's missing, to decrease the tissue that there's there too much of. As I say, probably for people who have already become pedophilic or realize that they're pedophilic or committed a sexual offense, it is about helping them to manage their feelings. I think the most long-term and most effective strategy we have available to us really is in basic prevention. Not the prevention of the second offense, but the prevention of the actual development of the pedophilia itself. With continued research, if we can figure out what in the brain went wrong in the first place, then we might be able to compensate for that or give interventions very early in life in order to prevent the disorder from occurring at all.
So are we talking, I mean, you're obviously in the realm of theory here, but are we talking brain surgery, or what are we talking about?
I'd hesitate to say surgery. It's the pattern of what we found in the brain is really, it's a deficiency in a particular kind of tissue. And that kind of thing can happen, for example, when the person is still in their mother's womb. Vitamin deficiencies, certain viral attacks can cause it, poor prenatal care can cause it. Once we can identify exactly what it is that started the entire chain of events, we could cut it off much earlier than after the first person has already become a victim.
There are studies showing that in pedophilia there are a number of neurobiological differences between pedophiles, and the idea is that already when the fetus is in the womb, that there are certain hormonal processes that predispose a person to develop pedophilic sexual interest.
I think the main cause is, as for sexual orientation in general, the interaction between sex hormones and developing brain. This is determined both by genetic factors and environmental factors.
On the other hand, there is the view that pedophilia is also related to early childhood experiences of being physically abused and or sexually abused. And the idea is that if you are abused as a child, you learn that that is a normal way of interacting with adults. So that's like an imprint in your mind. You think that's normal. So that's why that person who has those experiences may develop sexual preferences for children himself or herself and act on those.
All researchers agree that true pedophilia is not a conscious choice, just like being homosexual or heterosexual. The main difference of true pedophilia, also known as exclusive pedophilia, starts off with problems in sexual development. Unlike most people who have a normal sexual development into adulthood, a pedophile's sexual development is blocked. For example, when they are 13, they prefer 13-year-old children, but when they are 20, they still prefer 13-year-old children. And even when they are older, they will continue to prefer 13-year-old children.
There is no cure for pedophilia. You can't change the deviant sexual preference. What you can do is two things. One, you can intervene at the level of the sex drive. So there are pharmacological agents that really decrease the libido of the person. So that means you stop their sexual activity completely, also called chemical castration. That's one option, but this type of treatment has many harmful side effects. You can think about osteoporosis, serious osteoporosis, depression, feminization. So in the long term, this type of treatment is not an option. The second possibility is psychological treatment. That means you work on the psychological problems that actually make the person act out their pedophilic interests. So you can think about maybe the person has the idea that it's okay to have sex with children, that children are not harmed by it, that they actually may benefit from it, that it's a kind of sex education. Well, these types of cognitive distortions need to be diminished, need to be reduced in treatment. Also, a lot of pedophiles lack empathy, lack insight into what their behavior does to the children. So I'm talking here, of course, about pedophiles who act on their sexual preference. These types of treatments are necessary and are generally quite effective in reducing the risk of a pedophile, again, abusing children.
The type of things that are different in the brain do not suggest any obvious neurological kind of treatment. There's no way that we know of to increase the tissue that's missing, to decrease the tissue that there's there too much of. As I say, probably for people who have already become pedophilic or realize that they're pedophilic or committed a sexual offense, it is about helping them to manage their feelings. I think the most long-term and most effective strategy we have available to us really is in basic prevention. Not the prevention of the second offense, but the prevention of the actual development of the pedophilia itself. With continued research, if we can figure out what in the brain went wrong in the first place, then we might be able to compensate for that or give interventions very early in life in order to prevent the disorder from occurring at all.
Yeah, I normally don't cover these topics right here, and I haven't covered this topic before, and the only reason I'm touching this topic is because of what you saw at the end. And I'm also going to share a link with you of another young man who's taking up and standing up for the right thing here too. Okay, I know this is controversial, but the reality is just like gay people, pedophiles, they don't choose their sexual preference. Your sexual attraction, your preference is not a choice given to anybody. Anybody. And anybody that's sexually attracted to somebody else had no say-so on what they're attracted to. What you have say-so on is controlling yourself. That's what you have say-so on. But you don't have say-so on who you're going to be attracted to. Fact of life. And the main reason I'm doing this video is because he's correct. Finally somebody using their brain. Seriously. Even this young man, finally somebody using their brain. They're going after the root cause. He wants to keep researching to find the root cause so that they can maybe someday be able to do some kind of test on children as they're born. And if a child's born and it shows the characteristics of, they know that later on it's going to end up having this attraction, if there's something they can do to change this through continuous research to where they can change the outcome so that a person don't grow up to become a pedophile because of something they had no say-so over, then you could do the same thing for the gays too, couldn't you? For something they had no say-so over. You could check a baby when they were born. And you could straighten out what may be crosswired or what's wrong. This person said some good stuff. Okay? And he's correct. It's about time somebody goes after the root cause. See, if you find the root cause, you save the children, plus you save another person. Because the person who's the pedophile did not ask for the attraction. Nobody in their right mind would want to be attracted to children in a world where you knew if you were sexually attracted to children, you would be freaking killed. You'd be the most hated person in the world. Nobody would ever want that. It's not a choice given. And that is correct. One's sexual preference is not a choice given to them. So the research to find out the root cause is the proper thing to do. So this is the reason I'm saying something, because, you know, just like everything else, finding the root cause and not chasing the symptoms. People hate out and bash pedophiles, call them perverts, call them every name in the book, say how they're the lowest of the low in society, but yet they didn't ask for the attraction to begin with. And then they live in a society that's been completely sexualized, where they've even gone far enough to sexualize the children and then prance these children in people's face. And then when somebody has the attraction to the child that they didn't ask for, and you're there dressing that child that way and prancing it in their face, and then when something happens, you're bitching about they done something, use your heads. Stop dressing your children up like Barbie dolls and little sluts and little, excuse my language, and little hoes or whatever, man. Don't do it. Let your children be innocent and don't be sexualizing your children. But unfortunately, we live in a sexualized world, don't we? Where everything's been sexualized. Even love. Real love's been replaced with sex, hasn't it? Yeah, you know it has. So think about it hard. Because this is probably one of the best things I've ever seen when it comes to somebody chasing after the root cause. I'm so used to everybody just chasing symptoms, not going after the root cause. Just like MRA. Go after all the symptoms and don't go after the root cause. Think you can ask the root cause to change it when they didn't do it by accident. It's just pathetic. Okay, and all this bashing of pedophiles and all this blah, 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 we're protecting our children. But was you thinking about protecting the children When you drop bombs on their heads overseas, oh, well, you didn't care about them kids because they wasn't your kids. They were still children. You dropped bombs all over their head, didn't you? So when you want to talk about protecting your children, let's look at today's society. How many people don't even have the ability to be a parent to their kids? Let's look at all the divorce and all the children are growing up minus one of the parents. All the domestic abuse because of your ability to love. Love is drama. As if you're already in a perfect situation when everything's already messed up. But the bashing of pedophiles left and right and giving them higher sentences, more stiffer sentences if they mess up rather than looking for a cure was pathetic. If you can't find the root cause and correct the root cause, you're not saving the children. You know, there's more children that wound up being killed because the sentences became so stiff when somebody did something with a child, and the penalty, was so stiff and everybody killed them to begin with. So what they do? They killed the child to keep the child's mouth shut. So now what you did in your effort to protect your children is you killed your child. See, so it's really insanity. I understand the anger. I understand the frustration, the not wanting to protect your children. And I agree with that. But I also understand that you have to go after the root cause. And that's the reason I applaud some of the people that you've seen in this video that I just showed you. And that's the reason I played the one episode at the end twice. Because I wanted you to rehear the words. He's correct. And the link I'm going to provide below. Listen to this young man. He knows what he's talking about. He's correct. You got to stop hating and start understanding. They didn't ask for this. No, they did not. It's not something they can just change. Nobody asked for their sexual preference. And it's not something that can just be changed. And if it can be changed, it's only going to happen through the proper research like this guy's talking about and finding that root cause. Then maybe we could eventually get to a way of modifying or correcting it so that when a child's born, if they're going to be a pedophile or they're an adult, you already know it and you can change it before it happens so it never happens. Meanwhile, what'd you do? Now you're actually saving the children. Plus you're saving this person's life as well and giving them a life rather than taking their life. But we live in an evil society where people don't use their heads and people don't want to chase after root causes, do they? No. They get offended when somebody goes after a root cause, just like I did when I attacked division. Yeah. Of the genders even, yes. Taboo topic, yep. Wasn't supposed to talk about them double standards, was I? The division. But anyhow, I guess I've said enough, but that's my rant. I wanted to show you this because somebody's finally done their legwork in this topic, and they're correct. And when you watch what you've seen, maybe you can understand more of what's happening to these people. They didn't ask for this attraction. But remember this, I'm not standing up for their wrong actions. Because your sexual preference you may not be able to control. But you can control yourself. Which means you have to work hard at yourself. If you have this issue, just like a gay person, if they're gay and they don't want to be gay, then they would have to work hard at themselves not to act out on it. And the same thing with pedophiles, people who are attracted to children. Keep yourself away from children. Do what you have to do to not act out on your urges. You know they're wrong. But should you be condemned because you have them urges or attractions? No. Why? Because you didn't ask for them. This is why it's so important to go after root causes. And I hope that you understand what I'm saying. And I hope that more people will start looking into it harder. Doctors and psychologists and whatever. And keep studying the brain, just like you have. Keep studying the hormones. Find that root cause. And then find a way to fix it. And to test for it. That's the reason I've done this video, because that's what needs to happen.